Israel's committing a genocide. Sure. Now what? Am I supposed to support a Palestinian state? Yes, Israel's committing an apartheid on the Palestinians, 100%. Hey, my name is Bob. I have a small TikTok page that's growing where I debate geopolitics, politics, and specifically Israel-Palestine. I've debated the topic of Israel-Palestine in front of hundreds of people, and I've debated thousands of people, and yet I have not found one pro-Palestinian argument that makes sense to me. I get asked all the time, Bob, why are you pro-Israel? Why aren't you pro-Palestinian? And I usually answer them pretty vaguely because it's a pretty vague question. Morals and values. They usually respond with, so do you agree with blank and blank? And they'll list a bunch of buzzwords that they have no idea what they mean, like ethnic cleansing, genocide, apartheid, war crimes, illegitimate, things like that. But when it comes to these 4 or 5 topics that pro-Palestinians constantly bring up, they've been debunked time and time again. You've got great debaters like Nick Matau, Talia, Moderate Case, who all know a hell of a lot more than I do, and they've debunked these time and time and time and time again. So I find this argument to just be kind of boring and well, annoying. So instead of explaining to you and bringing up sources to prove you why it's not a genocide, why they aren't committing ethnic cleansing or apartheid, instead of doing that, I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to give the pro-Palestinians exactly what they want and still show why their argument doesn't hold any water. Now, before we begin, I just want to say I am no expert on this subject. I have no authority on this subject, and I don't claim to know everything. And there's plenty of things I still do not know, and I learn every single day, especially when it comes to Israel-Palestine. But I have read more than most Americans. I have researched more than most Americans. I've gone over reports, books, pamphlets, journals, and everything in between. So what I want you to do is not take anything I say here as truth. What I want you to do is go out and verify everything I said and see whether I'm correct or not and make up your own mind. So let's start with the first one, genocide. Israel's committing a genocide. Sure. Now what? Am I supposed to support a Palestinian state? Am I supposed to support Palestine in resistance? Am I supposed to support the democratically elected terrorist organization that the Palestinians overwhelmingly support and have grown in support after October 7th? That doesn't really make much sense. See, Hamas in their 1988 charter called for the direct genocide of all Jews around the world, and the Palestinians overwhelmingly supported that and democratically elected that in. Not to mention, there's many Hamas leaders since then that have been quoted for calling for the genocide of Israelis or Jews. Well, that doesn't, again, make much sense for why I then would support Palestinians because Israel committed a genocide. If anything, I just wouldn't support either. But let's not talk about just about today. Let's go back in history. We can look at arguably one of the first Palestinian leaders, the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, Haj Amin al-Husseini, who actively worked with and was on the payroll of Hitler. The first Palestinian leader agreed with Hitler. The first Palestinian leader wanted to bring the Holocaust to the Middle East. So again, since their inception and to today, they've supported the unalivement of Jews. So why would I then support Palestine? Doesn't make very much sense, does it? Let's move on to the second one, ethnic cleansing. I'm going to give it to you. Israel committed an ethnic cleansing in the Arab-Israeli 1948 war. They did. They pushed out 750,000 Palestinians. So I should support Palestine, right? Again, not exactly unless you're hypocritical. Because we can go back to the last person I was talking about, the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, who actively worked with Hitler, who was willing to unalive as many Jews as possible in the land of Palestine. Again, that doesn't really make sense for me to then go support that, logically. Or we can look at, for example, Azam Pasha, who wrote in an Egyptian newspaper that this would be a monumentous massacre, that this would be a war of extermination, this would be a war comparative to the Crusades. Again, that sounds pretty violent, that sounds pretty bad, that sounds like ethnic cleansing or genocide or whatever buzzword you want to throw at it. Or we can go to an example of a country right next to it, Jordan. Jordan was a part of the British Mandate for Palestine, and in the Arab-Israeli 1948 war, they illegally annexed it. They formally annexed it in 1950, and they kicked out all of their Jews, and no Jews were allowed to live there. They signed into law that no Jews were allowed to move there. That is literally, by definition, ethnic cleansing. So again, it doesn't make any sense for why I would support your side. If anything, again, I would still be in the middle. Let's start with the third example, apartheid. Yes, Israel is committing an apartheid on the Palestinians, 100%. I'm giving that to you. Israel, when it allows people into its borders, into its areas, it is committing an apartheid against them when they are Arab-Palestinian. They don't have same equal rights, they are treated poorly, they're not treated the best. I agree with you, 100%. So let's look at the other side. Because again, I should support Palestine then. Except, see, they don't just treat Jews bad inside their territories within Area A, Area B, or in Gaza. They don't give them, second-class citizenship. It's not like they can only hold certain jobs. No, they are just killed. They're specifically just not allowed to live there. There is no Jews inside Gaza or Area A or Area B, because every time they go in, they have things happen like the Ramallah lynching. So if we're, again, just comparing, Israel treats their Palestinian citizens bad, sure, give that to you. Palestine, the Palestinian state, literally just kills any Jew that walks into their territory. One seems a bit worse than the other. I'll let you decide. And for the fourth example, kind of the easiest one to debunk or just point out the flaws, is Israel is illegitimate. Israel should not exist. It should be Palestine or something else. Problem with that is, again, you're just hypocritical. A lot of the arguments made against Israel is, well, it was formed out of settler colonialism, or it was formed because of European colonizers taking over the land and contributing to the state of Israel. That it was because of colonization from the white man that created the state of Israel. Okay, I give that to you. 100%. Israel would not exist if it wasn't for the British. It wouldn't exist without killing, massacres, and unaliving of innocent people. So the issue with the argument is the Palestinians got direct help, funding, and actually support from the British, the white colonizer. See, the Jordanian army was literally led by a British general. The Jordanian army was heavily funded by the British. So they got direct help from the British. The British actually turned on the Jews and actually ended up raiding their homes in operations like Operation Agatha. They stole their goods, their weapons, and basically the Jews were fighting against two different colonizers, the Arabs and the British. See, the British wanted to work with the Arabs because of oil and money and support and military power. So again, it wouldn't make very much sense for me to go from supporting Israel because of colonialism, because of the white man, because of colonization, when the Arabs got help from the British and were supported overwhelmingly by the British. Also, if we held this value to every single country in the world, most countries just wouldn't exist. The list goes on forever. Most countries are not owned by a non-colonizer, by their indigenous people. So this idea of just any country that had any history of killings or violent uprisings or any form of violent nationalism, they should be dismantled, I find disingenuous, because that means the entire world would change, including basically every single Arab Muslim country. And so by that logic, again, unless you hold that, is very hypocritical and flawed. I do appreciate anyone who stuck around this long. I would really appreciate if you would subscribe and stick around for my future uploads. But to wrap it up, it's why I support Israel. Because even when I concede their points that are easily debunkable, they still don't really make much sense. They point out the hypocrisy, the lack of self-reflection on the pro-Palestinian side. But anyways, have a good day and see you next time.